Thank you very much, Shabbat Shalom. Greetings to you all. This may be the most important Parsha of the year. It sets the Torah's most important day of the year, the Passover festival, the observation of which made you a member of the tribe. This is also the Parsha which, in effect, sets the calendar. For many, the ultimate part of the Torah is the Epiphany at Sinai, and it is pretty amazing, as you will see again in a few weeks. But even it begins, I am the Lord who took you out of slavery, with the defining statement of freedom. Freedom, my friends. We continue to fight for it, so let us all take a minute to salute the freedom fighters the world over. And never forget, you are a freedom fighter. Congratulations. Freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of deed, freedom of choice, freedom of action, freedom of vocation, freedom of orientation, freedom of religion. And I'm sure you can all think of many, many more. Many a mile of freedom, many a smile to tell. Ask my bluebird to sing you from the heart of a wishing well. If you should ask me to give you the reason for life that we know, then together we flow like a river, and together we melt like the snow. And friends, together we do flow like a river, and together we melt like the snow. And I thank you for letting me be a part of you all. Now, the other day I received a call from someone I truly love talking to. And we talked about how important it is to have people you can grow spiritually with as part of a community. And he asked if we could be a chavura. For you Lord of the Rings fans, it is a fellowship, a group of like-minded spiritual practitioners who share communal experiences like life cycle events, prayers, or learning. And friends, we, all of us together, all of you who listen or watch, form such a fellowship. We are a chavura, and I am honored to learn with you all. In today's day and age, we can communally come together via the internet, and that is a blessing. Thank you and bless you all. It's been a busy week. Earlier, I was asked to be part of a symposium which was being held in advance of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland this week. It was called Shaping Davos, Journey to Inclusion, Learning from Microcosms of Interfaith Cooperation. And I was honored to be asked to speak because the thoughts from that meeting were going to be presented in Davos for all the delegates. And friends, I presented my thoughts to the group, which suggested three major components are necessary to have better cooperation: education, celebration, and elimination. Education, for young and old, for leaders and members, about their faith in others, about who they share the world with, about our common roots, about our capacities for love and life. Celebration of diversity, of each other's roots, festivals, holy days, and elimination of ego, especially ego of religious leaders. Now, I was surprised by some of the things I heard that night. And I reminded them, if you smile at me, I will understand, because that is something everybody everywhere does in the same language. But I still have hope we can learn to come together right now over me. And speaking of coming together, this week we read Bo, come. Although sometimes it is go. And sometimes, friends, we do not know if we were coming or going. And this week, my friends, we have the big three plagues, the three concluding plagues, unlike anything else. The previous ones were increasing inconveniences. These next three, however, are truly devastating. And friends, you'll notice that unlike the first seven, these three plagues lead into each other. The locusts are so thick in covering the land that the Torah tells us the land went dark with them, which leads to the plague of darkness. Not just dark, but a palpable darkness, with total absence of any light, even candlelight. And this contrast between light in Goshen and terrifying darkness in the rest of Egypt then sets the stage for the distinction between life for the Israelites and death for the Egyptians, to manifest in the 10th plague. But before we look at these three, I've been thinking a lot about New Year's resolutions and the dominant themes of getting in shape and making healthier choices, which statistics show outnumber all other resolutions by a mile. I think most people are more aware of healthy choices, like those regarding clean air, clean water, exercise, healthy, hopefully non-GMO food, which is probably soon to be but a memory, organic and free range. But of late I keep hearing about free range children, not chicken. And I think that is how so many of us grew up, free to play and explore and unencumbered. I certainly hope we are all capable of determining our kids' ability to cope with life and its lessons. Free range is food. Humanity is simply free. As Graham Nash wrote, you who are on the road must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well. Teach your children, my friends. Teach them to eat free-range food, but teach them to be free. We as human beings have an amazing capacity for freedom. And of course, one of the great gifts of freedom is our gift of forgiveness, especially when we feel others had no options available to them. We have a myriad of options in our lives. And while we may not always realize it or accept that we aren't taking advantage of them, we fight for underdogs who did not have the same right to choose. And in this Parsha, we read about the lack of choice, and we see how important freedom really is. Exodus 10:1. And God said to Moses, come to Pharaoh, because I have made his heart and his servant's heart heavy, for the purpose of my setting these signs of mine among them. We are told about a person who has no choice. Now, we still say Pharaoh was evil. He may have been, but he was a tool in God's plan. Listen to what was said. And the Lord said to Moses, come into Pharaoh, for I myself have hardened his heart. God has hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, so that I may set these signs of mine, God's signs, in his midst, and so that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your son's son how I toyed with Egypt, and my signs that I set upon them. And you shall know that I am the Lord. What a statement! And friends, this is a contradiction that has occurred even to little children. Why does God harden Pharaoh's heart against releasing Israel and then plague Egypt for not letting them go? It's a fantastic question out of the mouths of babes. The fact is, the Torah does not present the plagues as punishment of the Egyptians for enslaving the Israelites, but rather as signs by which God will become known. And yet, if you ask most people, they will tell you the plagues were punishment. Even more dramatically, God tells Moses to inform the Pharaoh that, and in fact, I established you for this purpose, for the purpose of showing you my power, and in order to tell my name in all the earth. Now, as I've said before, that's some way of announcing your presence and telling a name. What's wrong with making another planet instead? And as you read it, you'll notice that dispersed through the account are frequent reminders that this is the purpose of the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, and that this is the purpose of the plagues. The Egyptians' suffering in the plagues may be understood to be justified, a consequence of their cruelty, but still, the purpose of the plagues is not punishment, but rather to make God known. The 7 plagues we've witnessed so far were pretty powerful, and now, returning to our Seder dinner and the drops of wine for the plagues, the 8th plague, Exodus 10:4. If you refuse to let my people go, here, I'm bringing a locust swarm in your border tomorrow, and it will cover the eye of the land, and one won't be able to see the land, and it will eat the remains of what has survived that is left to you from the hail, and it will eat every tree that is growing for you from the field. Friends, what would happen if from little food or resources you suddenly had none? It would be the complete destruction and end of civilization and life. Is this a form of genocide? Not really, because the population can simply move on and leave the now uninhabitable land. I don't know if you remember that great Fresh Prince of Bel-Air movie, Independence Day, where Earth is invaded by space locusts, which simply eat everything, leave a planetary wasteland, and move on. I don't know if you've ever been to places like Egypt and Libya, but I have, and it sure looks like the locusts won. And even to the remaining courtiers, the outcome was obvious. Exodus 10:7. And Pharaoh's servants said to him, how long will this be a trap for us? Let the people go, so they may serve Yahweh their God. Don't you know yet that Egypt has perished? It's over. Egypt has perished. Interpreters and translators have tried to make this statement more logical by understanding it to mean Egypt is lost or ruined. Egypt never regained the position it once had. Egypt was simply never the same. As Bob Dylan sang, "You took my reality and cast it to the wind, and I ain't ever gonna be the same again." The locusts come, and it covered the eye of the land, and the land was dark. And it ate all the land's vegetation and the fruit of every tree that the hail had left, and not any plant was left in the tree and in the field's vegetation in all the land of Egypt. Now God gets rid of the locusts, and you would think that's enough, but boom! Exodus 10:20. And God strengthened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the children of Israel go. So we get plague 9. And God said to Moses, "Reach out your hand at the skies, and let there be darkness on the land of Egypt, and one will feel darkness." Can you imagine what that could be? One will feel darkness. Like the other plagues, this one is explicitly identified as different from what is found in nature. The hail and locusts are unlike anything that has ever happened in Egypt. The darkness can be felt. There is no chance whatever that the Egyptians or any interpreter of this text can understand these as being chance occurrences of nature. It wasn't an eclipse or freak storm. The darkness lasts 3 days. A heavy darkness that even candles cast no light in. So dark, in fact, that no one moved. But there was light in the Israelite homes. And just when you think, okay, how can anyone survive this? There's no more food left. There's this darkness. Boom! Yet again, Exodus 10:27. And God strengthened Pharaoh's heart, and he was not willing to let them go. Once again, God prevents compliance. And I kept thinking of that great Flip Wilson phrase, "The devil made me do it." It was funny. But this is not so funny. And in this case, it was not the devil making him do it. You can only imagine what could have been going through Pharaoh's mind as he does these things, wanting to let the people go, while being forced to condemn what was once a great and unique civilization. And then the final plague. Exodus 11:1, and God said to Moses, "I'll bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he'll let you go from here. When he lets go completely, he'll drive you out from here." Now the final plague is coming, and with it comes very significant rabbinic decisions. Moses goes to Pharaoh to tell him what God has said. And it's pretty amazing when you take a look at it. And Moses said, Yahweh said this, "In the middle of the night, I am going out through Egypt." I am going through Egypt. God himself. Now later Jewish tradition, presumably unable to bear the thought of God personally passing through Egypt and causing the deaths, introduced the concept of the angel of death. But there is no such thing as an angel of death in the Bible. The text is explicit that God personally passes through Egypt. The subtlety comes in the question of the relationship between the deity and the agent of the destruction. On one hand, God says, "I strike Egypt." And on the other hand, it appears that God halts at the door and prevents the destroyer, Mashit, from coming into the house. Is the Mashit a sickness, a force, a personified being? The wording we will see in Exodus 12:13, "A plague among you as a destroyer," indicates that the destroyer is the plague itself and not some person or angel. In any case, it clearly is God responsible for the creation of it and can therefore say, "I strike." And every firstborn in the land of Egypt will die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who was sitting on his throne to the firstborn of the maid who was behind the mill, and every firstborn of an animal. Now the two rabbinic rulings surrounding this, my friends, are the imposition of the angel of death, because we can't picture God doing the destruction, and with the putting of the blood on the doorposts. Now this is something that I'm often asked about. People are not sure if they are supposed to do it or not. Some do and some don't. Probably most don't. And there was a rabbinic only then ruling. So people do not have to put the blood on the doorposts anymore. And that came about a few hundred years ago because of projection and bigotry about Jews and blood. And then a very strange thing happens. Moses elevates himself as he says to Pharaoh, "And all these servants of yours will come down to me, and they'll bow to me, saying, Go out, you and all the people who are at your feet, and after that I'll go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in a flaring of anger. Bow to Moses. Now I read that and I wondered, where does that come from? They'll bow to me. Read this speech carefully, my friends. At the beginning, when Moses uses the first person, he's quoting God. I am going out through Egypt. But here at the end, the first person refers to himself. Will come down to me, and they'll bow to me, and after that, I'll go out. Now, it's hard to say where he stops quoting God and starts referring to himself, but this is tremendously important. A true turning point in Moses' life. His fear of Pharaoh and his lack of confidence are gone. He shifted Pharaoh's attention from God to himself. He has not stepped over the line and failed to credit God, but he will do that many years later in his sin at Meribah. This moment in Pharaoh's court is an amazing step in the long process of Moses' evolving relationship with his God and his people, which will have a tragic aspect in the end. Now, wouldn't you think that's enough to get someone's attention? Yeah. And Yahweh said to Moses, Pharaoh won't listen to you in order to multiply my wonders in the land of Egypt. And the section ends, and the Lord strengthened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the children of Israel go from his land. Now we're at Exodus 12:1. The Passover instructions are beginning, and two of the greatest and most perplexing things in the Torah occur: the issue about God or the angel of death, and the setting of the calendar. And Yahweh said to Moses and to Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, And this month is the beginning of months for you. It is the first of the months of the year for you. First of the months of the year. According to the Torah, the new year begins in spring, not in the fall, as Jews celebrate it now. The holiday that comes on the first day of fall is never referred to in the Torah as Rosh Hashanah. And it's fascinating how the calendar got shifted. And if anybody wants to know, please email, or we can talk about it when Rosh Hashanah rolls around in the fall. Now Moses instructs the people about the 14th day of the month, the sacrifice, and the meal of the lamb, and the putting of the blood on the doorposts. And the people are to eat in haste. Pesach hu ol Adonai. It is God's Passover. And I shall pass through the land of Egypt in this night, and I shall strike every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from human to animal. And I shall make judgments on all the gods of Egypt. I am Adonai. And the blood will be seen as a sign for you on the houses in which you are. And I shall see the blood, and I shall halt at you. And there won't be a plague among you as a destroyer when I strike in the land of Egypt. Two things to note, my friends. The Hebrew Pesach does not actually mean to pass over. Its biblical meaning is to halt. And we picture something floating over the houses, but instead it is God going among Egypt, killing, destroying, he says, seeing the blood on the door and halting, and then moving on. It's a different image from the one we've grown up with. And it is God doing the killing. But over time, the shift has taken place, and in subsequent eras it became an angel of God floating along. And that is what most people today will tell you. We are told, and this day will become a commemoration for you, and you shall celebrate it. A festival to the Lord. You shall celebrate it through the generations and eternal law. The first holiday of freedom, my friends, to be celebrated forever, an eternal law. Shavuot Yamim Matzot, 7 days. You shall eat unleavened bread. There is the festival. It will be known as the Festival of Unleavened Bread. We call it Passover, but it is the Festival of Unleavened Bread, Matzah. And friends, unleavened bread was the bread of the priests. It was the celebration of holiness, and every year we create this event in a state of holiness. What a powerful commemoration. Yes, teach your children well. You may have noticed that the words unleavened bread and commandment look the same in Hebrew. They share the same consonants. Matzah, mitzvot, both reflect your holiness. And to observe the holiday, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, in the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month in the evening. Friends, this was to be observed by native and by alien. It was that important. And if you did not observe this festival of freedom, You were to be cut off from the tribe. Friends, not too many of us get exiled these days. A small community where family and tribe meant so much more. This was an enormous penalty. Friends, one of the most important verses in the Torah is found here. There shall be one instruction for the citizen and one for the alien who resides among you. There is not to be a difference. Instruction is the translation of Hebrew Torah because it denotes both teaching and law. And this is the first occurrence of the word Torah in the Torah. Its first appearance is in a verse declaring that a foreigner residing among the people of Israel has the same legal status as an Israelite. The context here concerns the Passover statute, but this principle of treating a resident alien the same as any citizen will be repeated many times in the Torah. I can't think of a better example of inclusivity. Over the time, of course, the celebration of the holy day changed. And it was in the middle of the night, and the Lord struck every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who was sitting on his throne to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the prison house, and every firstborn of an animal. And Pharaoh got up at night, he and all his servants and all Egypt. And there was a big cry in Egypt because there was not a house in which there was not one dead. You thought Joseph's cry was loud. Imagine this. Not a house was spared. Friends, the particular importance of the Exodus story is that it served as the foundational narrative for the nation. All future laws, all future revelations are told against the background of the story of freedom. The Exodus story defines the nation. The Passover ritual, which commemorates that story, is the cultic enactment of membership in the nation. It was the defining moment for man. Whether you're a Bobby Darin or a Tim Harden fan or like them both, this is about freedom. So please come and sing a simple song of freedom. Sing it like you've never sung before. Let it fill the air. Tell the people everywhere, we the people here don't want a war. Thank you all for joining me. Love you all. Live free, be free, honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light and all those who live in the light, and shine on brightly. Continue to have a wonderful year. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, an end to terror and hatred, and continue to send out as much goodwill as you can. Thank you. See you all next time. Bless you all. Shabbat Shalom.